Hello, and welcome to another episode of AI in the Classroom Daily, a podcast helping educators make sense of AI without the hype. I'm Dan Cogan-Drew, co-founder, chief academic officer here at Newsela, and I use AI as a thinking partner in preparing each of these episodes because I think the best way to talk honestly about AI in education is to work with it openly. Today, I'm looking at two research studies that seem to be saying opposite things about how students learn with AI. One says AI is eroding math skills, and the other says AI feedback actually helps you when you pair it with peer review. They sound like they're contradicting each other, but I think they're both pointing in the same direction, and understanding that problem can help us think about the design of assignments. So, to frame this, let's say we assign word problems for homework. Students copy them directly into GPT, they get the answers back, submit their work, problem is solved, at least for them, but we have no idea if they actually learned how to solve those problems. Now, if we flip to a different scenario, we assign peer review, where students give each other feedback on a draft. Then they paste the same draft into GPT and get AI feedback. Then they have to write a reflection comparing the two, thinking about where they agree, where they disagree, and deciding which feedback actually matters for their writing goals. Something different is happening here. Students aren't just receiving feedback, they're making decisions about it. These two scenarios come from actual research released in the last few months. First one comes from a study by Sina Rishmanchian at UC Irvine, working with researchers at McGraw-Hill. They analyzed millions of student interactions with Alex, which is an online math platform used by over 4 million students a year. What they found was that after GPT launched, students started spending less time on word problems. Time dropped from about 31% for high school students, 27% for college students. They went from spending about 4 minutes per problem to less than 3 minutes. The concerning part is that when those same students took proctored placement exams, supervised tests where they couldn't use AI, their performance on those word problems dropped from about 80% correct down to 60%. That's a 25% drop in what they could actually do. Meanwhile, graphing problems, which are harder to outsource to AI, at least at the moment, showed no change in performance. The researchers termed this cognitive surrender, which is a term we've talked about for quite a while here on the show. Basically, students are using AI to skip the cognitive work whenever they can. The second scenario comes from a study called PAIR, Peer and AI Review plus Reflection, which was conducted at UC Davis. Researchers worked with 654 students across 10 writing courses. And what they found was that 58% of students preferred getting feedback from both peers and ChatGPT combined, rather than just one or the other. Students reported that when peer feedback and AI feedback aligned, it was reassuring, like getting confirmation from two different sources. When the feedback differed, though, it was useful just in a different way. Peers gave specific feedback rooted in the assignment context, while AI gave broader feedback about structure and organization. Students found both valuable because they were different. So you've got one study showing that AI is eroding learning and another showing that AI actually helps. So let's unpack the difference. I think that comes down to assignment design. In the Rishmanchian study, the word problems are standing alone. They're designed the way they've always been. That is, students solve them independently, get the answer right or wrong, and move on. When AI enters, students can outsource the whole thing. There's actually nothing left to learn. In the PAIR study, the assignment isn't just write something and get feedback. It's write something, get feedback from two sources, compare those sources, reflect on which feedback aligns with your goals, and then revise. That requires judgment. That requires the student to do thinking that they can't outsource. Both studies are showing educators trying to adapt to AI's presence. Rishmanchian's implicit solution is to add proctoring, supervise the work so that students can't cheat. The PAIR study's implicit solution is to add complexity to the assignment itself, make the assignment about more than just task completion. I would say that both responses are reactive, working around AI rather than working from a deeper principle about what learning actually needs to be. What I think both studies are showing us, perhaps by accident, there's a framework that's been around for more than 20 years, and AI is making it more mandatory than optional. The framework is called Understanding by Design, sometimes called backwards design, and it's developed by Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe. The basic idea is simple. You don't start with an assignment, you start with a transfer goal. What should students actually be able to do with this knowledge in contexts that matter? And then you design assessments that can prove they can do that. Then you design instruction backwards from there. So how this applies to both of these studies, for example, the PAIR assignment has a clear transfer goal, even though they might not have stated it this way. The goal is that students who can critically evaluate feedback from multiple sources and make revision decisions aligned with their writing goals and audience. Notice that this requires judgment, synthesis, and students to think about context and purpose. ChatGPT can't do all of that just by generating feedback. It can't decide which feedback matters for your writing in your situation. That's something only you can do. And that's why the assignment works. The Riemannian word problems, however, unclear what the transfer goal was. If it was to solve similar problems independently, then okay, AI basically kills that. Students can skip it. But here's the thing, if that was the actual transfer goal, then the assignment was never really a good measure of whether students could transfer that knowledge anyway, because solving the same type of problem isn't really transfer. Transfer is taking what you learned and applying it in a problem you've never seen in a context that's different from the classroom. So what Riemannian is actually showing us is that when you have a fuzzy transfer goal or no transfer goal at all, AI is going to expose it. The assignment's going to fall apart because it was never assessing something that mattered in the first place. What I think this means for you as an educator is, one, you don't need to ban AI. You don't need to add proctoring. You probably don't need to load every assignment with extra reflection components. But what you do need is clarity. You need clarity about what the student's transfer goal should be. If you start there and you ask yourself, what should students be able to do with this knowledge that matters? Then you can design your assessment around that. Not as an assignment, but an assessment. What would actually prove that they can do it? As Mick Tighe would say, the student is going to be found innocent of understanding until proven guilty. You work backward from that assessment. And if the assignment can be completely outsourced to AI and your students can still pass that assessment, then the assessment wasn't measuring transfer, it was measuring task completion. So to make that concrete, if you're teaching persuasive writing, for example, the transfer goal isn't write an essay. It's something like construct an argument that's tailored to a specific audience, anticipating their objections and addressing them. Better yet, it would be construct an argument based on your personal experience. What we've talked about previously in this podcast is part of an intro philosophy course at Notre Dame, what they call the apology. The apology is a justification for a decision you've made in your life. So the assignment might go something like, think back to a significant decision that you've made in your life. Imagine someone in your life who might disagree with that decision. Now write an essay or an apology defending your position while acknowledging how they might critique it. That requires knowing who you're writing for and what they care about. AI can help you write sentences, but it can't help you do the thinking about the audience and the counter argument for you. That's where you, as the student, have to do the work. Or if you're teaching problem solving in math, the transfer goal isn't get the right answer, it's figure out what operation or process applies to this situation, even when you don't recognize the exact problem type. The word problem homework that Riemannian studied doesn't assess that. It assesses whether students can follow a procedure that they practice. And when AI can do the procedure, there's really no assessment left. So both of these studies accidentally show us that backwards design from transfer goals isn't really optional anymore. It's the only design that's going to survive AI. And I think that's actually good news because it means you can stop assigning busy work. It means you can stop designing assignments around task completion, and you can start designing them around what actually matters. It means the students who need to learn something actually have to do the learning. AI can't do it for them. That's not more work. I think that makes the work clearer. So questions to leave you with. If you think about one assignment you're planning for back to school right now, what is the transfer goal? Can you name it? Could a student complete that assignment using AI and still fail to demonstrate that goal? If you can't answer that, it might be where the real work is, not designing around AI. It might be designing around what your students actually need to be able to do. I'd love to know how you're thinking about this. Are transfer goals something you already work with? How durable have they proven to be in the age of AI outsourcing? And if this is new to you, how does this change the way you think about writing your assignments and your assessments? Please share your thoughts in the comments. As always, I read everything you write. Thanks as always for listening to AI in the Classroom Daily, and we will see you on the next episode.